Welcome to the 7th episode of the podcast. This is your proprietor, Tony Ortega, coming to you from an undisclosed location deep inside the interior of the Earth's crust, otherwise known as the underground bunker. We know that many people are drawn to Scientology watching because of its celebrities, and we also have a certain fascination with them. 6 years ago, we named Scientology's top 20 celebrities in order of those most likely to defect. We thought we'd revisit that list and see how good our predictions were. And to help us out, we asked for help from Geoff Levin. A musician long associated with the Hollywood Celebrity Centre, Geoff is a walking encyclopedia about Scientology's luminaries. And he's been working on a film about his experience getting out of the church called Brothers Broken, and we wanted to see how that's going. Geoff Levin, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to talk to you again. I've had some wonderful times hanging out with you. Um, what's the latest? You've got a movie that you're making with your brother about the relationship and how Scientology ripped your family apart for what, and in the past and what's been going on now. What's going on with that?
We just finished what I would call a final edit for festivals. In other words, we're ready to start selling the film and placing it in festivals where it can be seen, and a lot of filmmaker scouts look for new films in festivals. So that's where we're going with it. We do have some connections in Hollywood and outside of Hollywood, so we'll go for that too, but we're ready to sell it. And it's been about a 4-year journey. And we just wanted to tighten it up and tighten up the story, which we feel we've done. And it's a compelling story. I feel it's a different story than any other films that have been done about Scientology, because part of it is that there's so much music in it because my brother and I um, have both been active musicians, and I've continued on as a film composer and TV composer and songwriter. So there's a lot of that going on within the film. And it's about how creative people uh, responded to being controlled by Scientology.
Well, and also your long history in Hollywood as a musician and scoring films and TV shows. Uh, while you were a very active member of Scientology and its Celebrity Center,
Yes.
means that maybe more than anyone I've ever spoken to, you have a much better understanding of the celebrities at Scientology, who's in, who's out, the background, the connections. I mean, you're just a gold mine. And so, what I want to start out with today is 6 years ago, here at the Underground Bunker, we put out a story where we listed Scientology's top 20 celebrities in order of those most likely to defect. And what we did was we listed 7 celebrities that we thought might actually leave, and 13 that we said would never leave. And I thought it'd be fun, uh, 6 years later, to see how we did, and
Okay.
go over these with you because you know these people better than anybody. Okay, so of the most likely to leave that we said were likely to leave, 7, 2 of them have left or at least indicated that they're leaving. Let me go through the whole list. The 7 Scientology celebrities that we said at least had a chance of leaving were, and this was in the order of most likely, were Juliette Lewis, Giovanni Ribisi, Beck Hansen, Elizabeth Moss, Erica Christensen, Catherine Bell, and Michael Pena. Now, Beck, of those, has given the most definitive statement. He gave an interview to an Australian newspaper about a year ago and said, I'm out. And he even said that he never was Scientologist, which we know is not true. But he gave a
Well,
very,
let me cut in here
yeah,
because I've known Beck since he was born.
okay.
And I really feel like Beck always marched to his own drum. And he didn't really participate in Scientology very often. I think he did it as a show for his dad, David Campbell.
Uh-huh.
More than
Well,
anything, I feel that, and the only thing I saw Beck dedicated to was his music.
right.
So anyway, that's my take on it.
Well,
And
yeah, and I'm sure you're right. And I just want to point out that in Scientology, celebrities are ornaments anyway. I mean, their job is simply to give the public the idea that Scientology is cool. So,
yeah,
whether Beck was doing courses or not doesn't really matter. He was at the Celebrity Center galas, he showed
yeah,
up at events. That's all they need. They just need someone to be, look, Beck's a Scientologist. So, I think it's a little disingenuous for him now to say he never was. But whatever, he definitely we predicted
right.
that of the seven most likely to leave, among them was Beck, and he's left. So we were right about that one.
Yes, and I can tell you a really, hopefully, a short anecdote about Beck at the Celebrity Center Gala.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure the date. It was probably late 1999, something like that. The galas were really big. And what a gala was, it's the anniversary celebration that they do outdoors in the parking lot at Celebrity Center in Hollywood. And the whole purpose of the gala is for Scientology celebrities to invite their non Scientology friends because it's really classy. Really, it is well done, right?
Like, so it's like a recruiting thing.
Well, but super subtle. In other words, there's no hard sell, no nothing. It's just to get non Scientologists into the Celebrity Center and in a comfortable way. Nobody's going to hit them up for anything. And there's just entertainment. And they talk, sometimes they talk about their social betterment programs. Like they'll get a police chief from like Detroit to speak at the gala,
Oh
right? But
wow.
he's talking about anti-drug. He's not talking about Scientology per
I see.
se. So
And it's
anyway,
this time of year, right? It's like August.
yeah. In fact, I'm not sure it might have happened or not. I could try to show up. That would be interesting. but uh, but anyway, this particular year they talked Beck into performing,
Wow.
and so he's got up there and something happened, and for some reason there was terrible technical uh, problems with the sound and everything. And he did perform. It was just him and an electric piano, and I could see though that he was like going, "What am I doing here?" He was, because it was so unprofessional.
Yeah.
And but he performed, and he is such a good performer. He just overcame it, and he killed, in my opinion. He was so superior to the golden era band, the Scientology musicians
Right.
and everybody else there, and he just did one song, and it was amazing. But I could just see that he was going, I'm never coming back to do this again.
Well,
And
that
he
might have been the turning point.
well, and he didn't. He never came back to perform.
I see.
So anyway, it was interesting for me because I had a duality going on, because on one hand, I'm being a creative artist, not just a craftsman, because I'm doing my celestial navigations and things that I did not for money, just for art. And here's Beck. That's all he does. He just happened to be commercial. But he doesn't do it to be commercial, because you look at his albums, they're all over the place.
Right.
So,
I've
anyway,
always really enjoyed his music, and now, it's great that he says he's out because now we can enjoy his music even more. Right.
and a lot of fans who were really disappointed, I think, are thrilled that he said he left.
Right. Now,
So,
the other person of the seven that we
yeah,
said were possible to leave, who has said something, is Juliette Lewis, and I had her listed number one because just some behind the scenes things that made me think she was thinking things over. And Juliette, of course, is the daughter of Geoffrey Lewis, famous character actor in Hollywood, one of your best friends.
Yes.
And he died a couple of years ago. And I thought that might also um, maybe affect her. Well, let's see, when was this? This was just just right around Christmas this last year. She told the New York Times that she doesn't identify. Or now let me read the quote because let's be
Yeah, read the
exact.
quote.
She said, "My parents cultivated this rebel, meaning they cultivated the individual spirit." And then the writer, in parentheses, at the New York Times says, they studied Scientology and Lewis has too, but she doesn't identify that way. And then Juliette's quote is, I'm a spiritualist. So this one was a lot more squishy to me. This wasn't like Beck Hansen telling an Australian paper, I'm no longer a Scientologist. This was very squishy. What do you think about it?
Well, again, Juliette Lewis, I've known her since she was born. And I was the first one to record her in my studio because I was doing Jeffrey a favor when she was really young. It's very cute what she did. Um, but she could sing then when she was a little kid. And here's my take on it. She she truly is. Jeffrey cultivated in her, in particular, a free spirit, and he pretty much emancipated her when she was 14.
Mm,
So she was out on her own, and she got in trouble. She got in she she did start taking drugs, and got into that. And then I think Scientology helped her get out of that. And her half sister, Brandy, uh, they're close. And so my feeling is when Juliet really got into her music, she she pacifies her family. Her mother is a hardcore Scientologist, Glennis
right.
Batley. She's I won't get into it, but she's pretty deep. And then Brandy's hardcore. So Juliet has that family, and I think she's like, okay, let me do my music, let me do my acting. I don't want to say anything negative because of my family.
I see.
And her dedication, I think, it's definitely not Scientology.
Okay.
So even
Okay.
though she might not state it, she's dedicated more than anything. She loves her music and traveling and performing with her band. And right there, I guarantee you, there's not one Scientologist in her band. So
It's that okay. Well, so that it was a squishy sort of statement, and it was the Times that said she didn't identify that way, but maybe she is on her way out. So that's a good sign for her. There were
I think
five.
so.
There were five other people
Yeah,
that we said might possibly leave. Let's go through them.
sure.
Now, Giovanni Ribisi, to remind our readers, we had a really interesting story because Vonnie's daughter went on a radio program in Los Angeles
Oh,
at
yeah,
KCR
sure.
at KCRW,
Right.
and they gave her a pseudonym,
Uh-huh.
and she talked about not being in Scientology anymore, and she can't talk about it because her dad's this famous member, and it was just too obvious who she was and who her father was, and I actually called her about it, and she didn't deny it. So anyway, I thought Vonnie was in a very interesting position because his parents, they're not together anymore, but they're both still hardcore Scientologists, and one of them was in the band with you,
Yeah,
and then
Albert.
Albert, and then his daughter's completely out. So Vonnie was in this sort of strange position, and then also his parents were part of this large celebrity clan in Scientology.
Yeah, yeah.
So Vonnie was in. I thought Vonnie was in a tricky position. I still feel like his own daughter made it sound like he was halfway out, but he may never say anything because his parents are so hardcore. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. I think again, here's something that I've observed, and I maybe it's true for other people, but I'm watching it strictly. from an observer who has been creating and working as an artist for a long time, what I noticed is the artists who are hardcore, most of them are dead or their careers are kind of iffy or they're not hardly doing anything at all. And the ones that I see that are still thriving, like Beck and Vonnie, that means to me they don't care. They don't. They'll say that they won't make waves because of family. Ultimately, it's like, leave me alone. I might show up for something occasionally, and that's the end of it. In other words, they don't want to be bothered because they are creative and they're not going to let Scientology tell them what to do.
Right.
I think Bonnie falls into that category. He's so talented. And a lot of people don't know he's also really good guitar player. And at one time, he was going to play with Jason Lee. They were going to do a band together. Super creative guy. And I've noticed every one of them who's super creative. And I don't feel like because you make a lot of money as an actor, you're super creative.
I
You know,
see.
I
I
mean,
see.
that's my feeling. And I won't get into another big actor that we know who makes buco bucks.
We'll probably end up getting to him.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's an interesting assessment about Vonnie. The next person on our list
yeah.
was Elizabeth Moss, and she she has certainly sort of defended Scientology to a certain degree in recent interviews. And there was an interesting interview in New Yorker magazine that you were a little disappointed by. You actually were quoted in it.
Right.
We did a story at the bunker where you explained that there were some things about Elizabeth that didn't get into the story. But based on what you told me for that, I get the feeling that Elizabeth Moss is still very dedicated to Scientology.
I think because she was a second generation and raised in it, and she was given a lot of freedom, and she's uber talented. She is very talented, and she's probably one of the only ones I know whose whose career has continued to grow. Um, but I think she's super dedicated. I'm not sure. I think her dad. I don't think she talks to her dad. He was a music manager for many years, Ron Moss, and also a musician. But I don't think she talks to him, and I know she's in touch with Linda, and I think Linda is fringy. She never really did much Scientology. She was always in it though. And so I'm disappointed in Elizabeth because she she's really got a lot of creative smarts. If you, and I think that she's one of the few left that is still really working and creating big waves as an actress.
And another person on the list that I'm disappointed about because I think another person who is doing well in their career and did not grow up in Scientology but joined as an adult is Michael Pena, and I had put him on our list of perhaps might leave,
Yeah.
but he's married to Bree Schaefer, who's listed as a witness in one of the accuser's police reports of the Danny Masterson situation.
Wow.
And so there's a pretty good chance that Bree Schaefer ends up being called as a witness in that trial.
Uh huh.
So I don't know that Michael Pena is really in a position to, say much of anything either way. But it's a disappointment because he he literally joined Scientology because he was impressed by something that Greta Van Susteren said.
Hmm.
Did you know him at all?
Well, I was around him a lot. I think he's very humble
Oh no, I'm
and
wrong. I'm wrong. Let me say. I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. It was something he saw Jenny Elfman say, not Greta Van Susteren.
okay. Yeah.
Something that makes more sense. I'm sorry. It was Michael Pena was impressed by something Jenna Elfman said on Scientology that got him into Scientology. And anyway, go ahead. You said you did know him.
Yeah. And I think with Michael, this has happened. and it kind of contradicts what I was saying about the success, but we're only talking of a few actors anyway. But um, I think Michael was his career took off, and he equates that with being in Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
He also had some very strong relationships, like with I think he and Jason Lee were very friendly, and so he had some good foundation to for him to want to stay in. And I don't know if is his wife a Scientologist because I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to reinforce it. I'm sure she's pretty hardcore. So um, that's my only thought on him. And again, I'm disappointed too because I think he's a fabulous actor.
They actually moved to Clearwater recently, which should
Wow.
give you some indication of their dedication.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. So okay.
The other two people on our most likely to leave list, or possibly leave, were Erica Christensen and Catherine Bell. Do you have any observations about either one of them?
Well, with I've known Erica for a while, and she's again talented. She was in a vocal group. She used to sing with this Scientology vocal group, and then I think she got some opportunities to act, and then traffic came along, and boom, all
Right.
of a sudden she's like on the scene. So I don't think she's going to leave. I think her mother is still heavily into it, and I think she's working. I feel like she peaked. She's one of those actresses that she's talented. She will get more work. I don't know if she'll go beyond what I call getting work.
Right.
And with Catherine Bell, I don't know. I was around her too. Always thought she was uber cute. Um, and if she is following what she wants to do with her life, then I don't see how she can stay in Scientology.
Well, I mean, it's pretty well known that she is now in a relationship with another woman after her marriage breaking up, and I think they're fairly open about it. And of course, that brings up a lot of questions because Scientology is notoriously homophobic. People always ask me about that. Not like, for example, characters playing gay Scientology celebrities playing gay characters in TV or film. And I always say, look, the thing about celebrities is they get to break those rules. I mean, celebrities are ornaments. They're there to make the church look good. Scientology is notoriously homophobic. Catherine Bell is in a relationship with another woman, and I think that's why some people were thinking she might be the most likely to leave, but I haven't seen any indication that she has.
No, I don't think she will. I think they'll leave her alone. She has friends, other Scientology friends like Michelle Stafford, and I'm sure others that don't care. They know what the church policy and what Hubbard's policy is. It's really Hubbard. He was super homophobic, and and so I don't think she's going to move as long as they leave her alone. Again. I think she peaked with Jag in terms of her popularity, and she's working and she's got a good relationship. And I think as long as that's all going well, I don't think she's going to rock the boat.
Okay. The other 13 people we listed in our top 20 Scientology celebrities, I referred to as the bitter enders. And these were the folks we said were never going to leave no matter what. And I was wrong.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm happy you were wrong.
there was one person on that list who has said she has not been a Scientologist for 5 years, and that is Laura
Oh,
Prepon.
that's right. Yeah, Laura. I think that group started, and I was around that group because um, what's his name? Rusty. I don't remember his last name, but
Rusty Tweed?
yeah, Rusty Tweed.
Danny
Uh,
Masterson's stepfather.
yeah, Daniel, and I used to. My son and Rusty's son were buds. They were good buddies, and so I would go over there and saw that group. It was a very tight group at that time. The Masterson family and Laura was always there, and I think that as people's careers moved, and I think for Laura it might have been when Masterson first got exposed years ago.
Well, that's what's interesting about her statement to People magazine that she's been out for 5 years. That felt, I mean, maybe it's true. She could be telling the truth, but it seemed an interesting number because that would mean that was last year. So 5 years would be 2016, and that would be just before the news about Danny came out. So I think she was kind of, backdating things to say I got out before the news about Danny, and that may be the case. That's what she said. I don't have any evidence to the contrary. But yes, you're right. She's saying that this had nothing to do with Danny. I think the reason she was in Scientology to begin with had to do with either Danny or someone very close to him bringing her in. In that '70s show era. But for whatever reason, she said she's married to Ben Foster now, right? And they have a child.
I
And
know. Well, I can't see Ben Foster in any way, shape, or form being interested in Scientology.
okay, maybe that was what led her to get away then,
Well, he's a pretty intense actor
right?
and very talented, another super talent guy. And I never just to act to do the type of characters he does. I didn't see that he might be compatible with Scientology
Okay.
because he Foster really stretches it, and so. But I'm happy that she's out, and and it could be as she was doing the Orange is the New Black or something like that. She started getting exposed to a whole different kind of a universe, you know.
Right. And let me just point out that all three of the people then on our original 20 list who have left,
Hmm.
or who have indicated at some level that they've left,
Right.
Juliette Lewis, Beck Hansen, and Laura Prepon,
Hmm.
all three of them did so in a very sort of soft way, and Scientology does not seem to have gone after them or said anything negative about them. Of course, the opposite example, of course, is Leah Remini, who came out guns blazing, and she was just like criticizing the church and Miscavige, and they went after her with everything they had. In this is a very different situation where these three high-profile Scientologists have said in some form that they're no longer involved, and then they've said nothing else, nothing critical, and the church has basically left them alone as far as we know, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's going to stay that way. I've seen other people just kind of fade away, celebrities or non-celebrities. And if you don't make any waves and you're not public, then nobody even knows. You know, the general members of Scientology don't even know.
Right.
And and so in my particular case, I'm not a big celebrity, well-known celebrity with a face and everything. Um, I was vocal enough though, and that the Facebook police made sure that every single person disconnected or unfriended me.
Well,
So
I mean, it's a lot worse than that. I mean, they convinced your kids to turn their backs on you. I mean, that's
well,
what's
yes, they were coaching, in particular my daughter. They coached my daughter about how to talk to me and how to disconnect from me.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not a small impact. As far as they haven't wasted any money or time on PIs or anybody following me or anything that I know. And when the movie comes out, that's a different story because I intend to be all over the place. If I can, I want to be on radio shows, on any kind of TV talk shows, anything that I can do, podcasts. And at the same time, I'm pushing my band's album because it's tied in. Our band was broken up by Scientology.
And for those who are just, I guess I did take some things for granted with our readers, but Geoff Levin was part of a band called People that had a huge hit in 1968, I Love You. And almost immediately after that success, they joined the Sea Org as a group. It's an incredible story.
Well,
I've
we
heard.
kicked, yeah, we did. We kicked out the two singers who were the center of our group and our sound. We were so clueless, we kicked them out, and our sound went away, and so we couldn't replicate our hit. It was crazy. And then yes, we joined the Sea Org almost immediately after that. We got talk. Well, we my brother and I helped establish Celebrity Center,
Right.
so we were right there.
So sort of the house band of the Sea Org, and dedicated your lives around the clock like Sea Org members do. And then your brother decided in the 1980s that he'd had enough, and so you and he were then split up in the Scientology way, and for years and years you would have nothing to do with him.
That's
Uh,
true.
and this is what the documentary is about: is how you finally made your way out of Scientology, and it nearly killed you. And the reunification with your brother, which is just an incredible story. And I hope people get to see it soon. So anyway, there's so much there uh,
Well,
that.
let's go back on the celebrity front. I think you should mention the other celebrities.
Okay, so let's get back to our list. Um, so among the bitter enders of the 13 we said would never leave, like I said,
Uh,
one of them has apparently left, Laura Prepon, and two have passed away, Chick Corea and Kelly Preston. How well did you know the two of them?
I knew Kelly knew me, and I knew her. We didn't know each other very closely. Um, they were pretty, you know, tight, her and John, and not too many people were in their inner circle, but I was around them. I knew Trick very well because I met him early on in the 70s when he first got into Scientology. And Chick was dedicated to the end. And I feel he went in a certain way the same route that Jeffrey Lewis went, in that he didn't trust the medical community and he didn't take the advice of standard treatments, thinking that, well, Scientology OT levels were going to save him.
Really?
Yep. Well, that's what happened to Jeffrey Lewis. He had a heart condition and he just refused to take his heart medicine. He ignored it, continued to work out and do things. And boom, he had a heart attack and several strokes, and it just kind of wiped him out. And there's no reason for it except that he refused to, well, he listened to what Scientology said about doctors and what Hubbard said about doctors. He took that seriously, and he should have followed standard protocol. He'd probably still be alive today. And I feel a little bit the same way about Chick. Chick had cancer, and he he just got worse and worse. And I don't think that he did what he could have done. I don't know that for a fact. So with Jeffrey, I know that for a fact.
Let's
With
just.
Chick, so it's sad because I feel that Chick creatively also reached his peak uh, years ago, and then got way more into Scientology, and that didn't help him.
Mm. I mean, there's just no doubt the guy was a fantastic musician, just absolutely top. And um, but you're right. He was very into Scientology. He did OT8 twice.
Yeah, yeah, no, and he proselytized with other Scientology musicians. I know that. I do know that for a fact. And he was like pretty hardcore. Hey, when are you going to be on your next course? When are you going to do OT7? Blah blah blah. That was Chick.
Right.
It's too
Wow.
bad.
And with Kelly Preston, when John Travolta released the first word about her passing, it was an Instagram post, I believe, and he did something really interesting. He mentioned MD Anderson Cancer Center in his message,
Hmm.
which I thought was on his part really smart because people would naturally wonder if Kelly had not gotten proper medical care because of Scientology.
Uh-huh.
So, people have asked me, do you think Kelly Preston's not alive today because of Scientology? I said we can't make that assumption because Travolta, right there in his first message, mentioned not just a cancer center, but one of the best in the country.
Right.
So we have to assume that they took her, situation seriously and did what they could. And that is another thing is that, L. Ron Hubbard was down on doctors, and Scientologists often seek alternative treatments,
Yes.
and Scientologists can get into some really bizarre conspiracy theories, and it has led some Scientologists not to get proper care for things like cancer. However, uh, particularly with a celebrity, but even non-celebrities, if a Scientologist gets a cancer diagnosis and decides they want proper treatment, Scientology's not going to stop them.
No, no. They wouldn't at all. They they leave that to the individual. I'd like to give another opinion
Yeah,
that I've observed that every person who subscribes, and I think this goes across the boards to almost any severe controlling cult. It's especially true in Scientology, where they really, if you want to be in Scientology, you have to listen to what they tell you, unless you're a celebrity, and then you have a little bit of leeway. Even then, you can only go so far before you cross the line and you get in trouble. And I think my feeling, because I just got through with a cancer treatment, I had an operation last year, and I followed all the protocols and did everything right, and I had good doctors and everything, and it's turned out well for
good,
me.
good.
But here's the thing: this is my belief from my experience and from observing almost every person that I know in Scientology. One for one, they're under 24/7 stress, and the
Yeah,
only time maybe they're not stressed is when they're asleep. And I feel like that plays havoc on your body. And that's why, to me, so many Scientology OTs died young. The stress is huge, especially on the OT8s and on the upper level Scientologists are expected to do so much and give so much money.
right.
And so that's my own opinion from what I've observed.
Interesting. And like I
And
said, there's no question that L. Ron Hubbard created an environment that is very down on doctors, is encourages conspiracy thinking and seeking alternate treatments. And so a lot of Scientologists tend to be anti vaxxers and anti Western medicine. But the church itself is not going to tell somebody you can't go to the hospital and get the best treatment you can.
no, in fact, they have what's called a medical officer, and you have to go to them. But here's the thing: you get cancer, you have to go to the medical officer. First, though, you have to go to the ethics officer to find out who you're connected to who is a suppressive. Because if you're getting sick like that, then you have to be connected to an SP.
In other words, if you have an illness, particularly a serious one, you
Yes,
must be connected to an enemy of the church in some way. Because
yes.
Scientology doesn't believe in germ theory. Scientology doesn't believe in biological, medical theories. It believes that if you're sick, it's a manifestation of your connection with somebody who is an enemy of L. Ron Hubbard or David Miscavige.
Or somebody who manifests all of the antisocial personality traits and therefore would be dangerous to the person staying in Scientology.
I see.
So in my particular, and I made a point when I was under the radar. I was out of Scientology in my head, but I was under the radar. I did the brand new course that teaches you called PTSSP course, and that's where you learn the doctrine about disconnection when you have to, and about the suppressive person. And Hubbard's very clear, except he contradicts himself in the course, and nobody picked it up except me that I know of. But he's very clear that, and you have to memorize what he says, that to a greater or lesser degree, if you're sick or making mistakes, um, then you are connected to a suppressive person.
Hmm.
I mean, it's really clear, and that's kind of like the neon sign in big red letters thing that you have to know and that you have to agree to. If you don't agree to that, then boom, you have to go to the ethics officer. So I did that course, passed it with flying colors, and I was in there to mainly see, is this really what Hubbard was doing? Did he create this control mechanism so that he could make sure that he had something on everybody in Scientology? And sure enough, it hasn't changed over the years. The new course has the same emphasis
Mm.
that Hubbard had when, and he, if you didn't agree with Hubbard, you were out, and then you were labeled as an antisocial personality, or the standard thing, an SP, suppressive person.
Right.
So I think I've graduated. I haven't got my diploma yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get my SP diploma pretty quick.
I don't think they hand them out anymore. It's just when somebody's designated a suppressive person, they get what's called a declare. And
Right.
in the old days, it was and it's always printed on a particular kind of paper, get golden
Goldenrod.
color, and so people would just say goldenrod, and you knew what they meant. They were talking about their declare order.
Yeah.
But they stopped giving those out years and years ago, and it's very few people in the last 20 years have seen their goldenrod, which is a shame because they're comical if you can ever get your hands on one.
Well, I had a friend of mine who actually, they took him down to the basement of Celebrity Center. It's kind of scary, where the ethics people are, and they showed him my declare.
Oh,
And he didn't say much to me. In fact, I had two different people who looked at it. And one of the things on it, I think, was they accused me of starting a splinter group. And I was like, what? In other words, I was starting an offshoot of Scientology without permission. So they just make shit up.
yeah,
They just make up whatever they want about you. And then, of course, they have no qualms about going into your confessionals, where you tell all, you tell, what you did, that uh, you robbed a bank or you did something, and you have to tell it. And so they don't have any qualms about taking what you've said, even though it's supposed to be sacrosanct. Uh, they will reveal it.
right. How they
So
use it against you in blackmail.
yes, they will.
So there were 13 people again that we
Yeah,
said would never leave, and one did, Laura Prepon, and two have passed away. That leaves 10. I want to go through some of them and just quickly
yeah, yeah.
get your impression about just any thought you have about them. Let's go through them one at a time. Kirstie Alley, what can you tell me? Just some brief thoughts about her.
I've known Kirstie since she's been in Scientology. I had a bit of a crush on her in the early days. Um, I think she's hardcore, and she's never going to change. She's got a kind of a group that is in the bubble, and she is always a bit whacked out, and that played to her advantage in her characters and her acting and stuff like that. Um, I don't think she'll ever leave, and I think she peaked in her career years ago.
Okay. Ann Archer.
Um, Super sweetheart. I worked with Anne. She sings. She is a talented actress, and I think because she's married to Terry Jastrow, who's not going to leave Scientology either, and her son Tommy is I don't he might be kind of low key, but he right now I think that family is stuck for for the long term.
Right, and just what you mentioned there. So Ann Archer's son is Tommy Davis, the very popular former spokesman of Scientology. When I mean
Yeah.
popular, I mean popular among people who like to look at Scientology's controversies. I do an update on Tommy every couple of years. The latest on him was that he had divorced Jessica, and he's now married an Egyptian actress. They have a son. They were married in Morocco. He's working for Tom Barrack, who was his father's very good friend. The Tom Barrack, who's now facing federal charges for representing the company, a country of the United Arab Emirates or something,
All right.
but without registering as an agent or something. It's very complex. Anyway, Tommy's basically working for Tom Barrack in the way he was working for David Miscavige. If just go to the bunker, type in Tommy Davis, you'll find a lot of updates. People always ask about him, and they're always fascinated. But I didn't put him on this list because he's left the Sea Org. He's still in Scientology, but like you said, he keeps pretty low key about it. Okay, how about Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson?
She's in it for the long term. And
And
I'm
and I've heard that she's kind of an enforcer on other celebrities.
Yeah. Oh, she is. She's like hardcore. I worked with, and I was friends and worked with Nancy, watched her through her various husbands, and she just, that's her group. That is her center. That's her group. She's set financially for life more than any, she just, in terms of the money, it's ridiculous. And the amount of money she's donated to Scientology and continues to donate to it.
At last count, $17.5 million.
Yeah, and that's a drop in the bucket for her. So I think she's still working, and I don't think she's attempted to get into a real uh, acting career. In other words, a full-on acting career, and I don't think that's ever going to happen at this point.
Well, she directed a film a couple of years ago, right? About
Oh,
looking for
Finding
finding
Fellini.
Fellini, and yeah, in a film set in Italy, right?
Well, she didn't direct it, but she wrote it, and it was based on her stories.
Okay, okay.
And it was directed by Taryn Lexton,
A
who
Scientologist.
Scientologist up and coming, who's the son of Mary Shuttleworth, who founded Youth for Human Rights and put the human rights thing on the map.
Right.
So I know them really well because I did the music that basically was super successful for them in the music video that they did.
Okay.
So
Uh, Now that brings us to Tom Cruise. Did you know him very well at all?
no, I was around him and I thought he was uh, at the time humble, nice guy, and I that's all my impression. And he was more active. Uh, Not sure what the date was, but I saw him a lot at Celebrity Center, or he was at Celebrity Center. You knew when he was at Celebrity Center because you couldn't park in the celebrity parking. It was blocked. And I was considered like I think I was on the C list as a celebrity. Um, and so you couldn't go into the president's office. It was blocked off. You had uh, guards, they're Secret Service people and stuff like that. So um, my only observation about Tom Cruise is when he was with Nicole and when he was kind of out of Scientology,
Yeah.
I think his talent started to really shine through. I feel he's a very talented actor. I don't think he will ever reach the quality that he had as a artist, an actor, as long as he stays in Scientology. If he gets out, that'd be incredible because I think he could blossom as an actor. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Magnolia. That was when he wasn't very active.
From once he got together with Nicole in 1990, a couple years later, she had been very active, initially, then she drifted away from it and kind of took him with her. And this is based on things that I've checked with a lot of people that were executives there at the time. Tom was kind of kept Scientology at arm's length from about 92 to 2000 when he broke up with Nicole, and then
Hmm.
they really worked hard to get him back in.
Oh
But
yeah,
during
well,
those 8 years, he did get away from things. And you're right, from 92 to 2000, he had some very interesting film roles, and maybe was taking more chances.
oh definitely. I feel creativity and Scientology, when you put them together, what you get equals Scientology.
Mm.
There's the creativity is gone, in my opinion.
Well,
And
he's doing very well. He just had his first $1 billion box office hit with Top Gun Maverick.
I don't equate making money with creativity, and
Mm,
I don't equate that kind of movie as artistic. It's commercial.
yeah,
It's the business. It's great. Some people spend their whole lives doing commercial films. They never really get into uh, the art part of it, and that's fine. And I don't. It's That's fine. I just know that my observation that he peaked creatively much earlier. And not to say he's not going to have more box office hits, but I'd
right.
love to see him do something that's just creative.
How about Jenna Elfman?
Yeah. How about her?
Well, she's next on our list, so I'm just asking for your
No,
thoughts on her.
I'm just being sarcastic. She's annoying, and I think again, she's as an actress, she's like gone. I don't think she's going to do anything more. And uh, if she does, yeah, she might work. That's about the end of it. I watched her career from the beginning. I saw when Bodhi was getting work, and she was all upset because she wasn't working at all. Bodhi was working, her husband, and uh, and then she just turned into, to me, a major annoying person.
Well,
And
I've heard that she's also something of an enforcer with the other celebrities.
oh yeah, absolutely. No, she's hardcore, and Bodhi is too. Except Bodhi doesn't have much pull, and she is, quotes, the bigger celebrity. And she was made big by Chuck Lorre,
Right.
and Chuck was in very early, and he got out really quickly, which was good for him because I was friends with Chuck at the time, and he was really getting into comedy when I was friends with him in the 80s, and he was writing, and we wrote a treatment together for a music comedy series, and then I kind of lost touch with him, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's making incredible TV stuff. You know.
Well, one of the things I have to thank you for, one of the great little scoops that we had at the Underground Bunker recently, was people had noticed how amazing the Scientology references were in a TV series called The Kominsky Method
Yeah,
with
I like that.
with Michael Douglas and Alan Arkin,
Right.
and people, and everyone kept bringing up to me, Tony, have you seen these scenes? They not only have a Scientology character, but the lingo is right, the jargon is correct, the jokes are perfect. And you were the one that told me the reason why the Kominsky method is such a good, uh, portrayer of Scientology is that Chuck Lorre was a Scientologist, and I don't think people generally knew that.
Well,
And so,
yeah, he was in it. I would say not briefly, but he was not in it that long.
right, but then we got to write that story at the bunker and said Chuck Lorre, this prolific, successful writer in Hollywood, spent some time in Scientology. Geoff
Yes.
Levin knew him. Geoff Levin knew him there. This is why the Kominsky method is so good. Is that Chuck Lorre knows what he's talking about?
Oh, absolutely. He was an auditor. He was in at a time when people who were auditors were respected, and yeah, and then, but he was always dedicated to his music. He was always dedicated to his writing, and that, I think, that took him where it took him, and he was never really treated as a celebrity when he was in Scientology. So it was like, for him, uh, no big deal. And then I do remember again another gala celebrity event where Jenna invited Chuck to the
Hmm.
gala, and Chuck came.
Oh wow.
And I saw Chuck there. I said, "Hey, Chuck, how you doing?" And he was happy to see me and everything. And but that was it. He showed up for Jenna, and then and no more.
Well, I have to wonder what Jenna's relationship with him is like today when he's making so much fun of Scientology on television, and she's still the enforcer.
Well, I would say that on the surface, they are probably still talking. Uh, Behind the scenes, she's upset. She's and pissed off at him, and because she, knowing Jenna and the way I've seen her operate, she's going to be pissed off at anybody that attacks her religion.
You know,
And but on the other side of it, uh, Scientologists, you can't trust them to hold a position, and so they're hypocrites. They'll if it's money or fame, they'll say whatever they have to say.
right.
If it's big enough. So that's my opinion of Jenna.
Well, there's a couple more on the list. Let me
Yeah,
just
yeah,
do a couple
yeah. Sure.
more. We don't want to do all of them, but I'm just curious. Did you ever get to interact with Greta Van Susteren at all in Scientology?
No, I think I saw her at Celebrity Center, and that's it. You know, Nothing more than that. I was not into the news, and so she is kind of an anomaly. To have a news commentator who was a celebrity at Celebrity Center.
Yeah,
So I don't have anything to say about her, but other than, as far as I know, she's still in.
and she never says anything about it. That's the other part that's odd. Is we know that her husband John Cole is very dedicated to Scientology. He actually tried to create a political action group for Scientologists at one time, and
Uh huh.
he really barked at a reporter that dared to even bring it up around him a few years ago. So, but yeah, she's as far as we know, she's still very involved, but she just doesn't say a word about it. Let's finish up with John
Sure.
Travolta. Tell me what you know about John Travolta.
Well, what I know about John is I was there when he got in, and I knew his. I was pretty friendly with the person who got him in, Joni Prather, and he was young, really young and impressionable, and um, always to me a nice guy. And I think that's still probably the case. I think he's torn between several issues. One of them, I think, his original manager, and I think it's always been latent there in terms of his bisexuality. And I think he just had to try. if you get into Scientology, then I think his hope was that the auditing would get rid of it, would get rid of the homosexuality part. And I don't think, and I know for a fact from firsthand reporting that the stuff about John is true. I don't think it would make any difference uh, if he was not in Scientology, what his sexual preferences are. It has to be, I think it has to be tough, and I feel that might have also contributed to the pressure on Kelly, knowing what she had to know
Yeah.
about him. I'd love to see him get out. Again, he peaked many years ago in terms of his acting and then has made a lot of not good choices in
Well,
terms of.
isn't he another one that, so you described this about someone else earlier? Isn't he another one who really ascribes all of his success to his involvement with L. Ron Hubbard and Dianetics?
I would say most that it was simultaneous that he got into Scientology and all of a sudden things started really kicking up for him. Things started going his way. And even when his career went down, I think he got some auditing or something, and then he did the big movie that put him back on the map.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction, and and then his career was boosted again for a while. Except my view is that if you're in Scientology, yes, you can get these spurts of creativity or spurts of career peak, except it's going to be a downward kind of graph. It's never going to last because the suppression for any person who's in Scientology, the actual SP is Hubbard and the organization or the suppressive person. Till they disconnect from that, all bets are off in terms of how well they're gonna do.
I've heard that there are a couple of different times he seriously contemplated leaving Scientology. Do you know that anything about that?
No, I haven't heard anything about that. I can believe that's the case. I think John is to some degree has a duality that is difficult for him. On top of the fact that he's still in Scientology, that's got to be stressful
Right.
for sure. And I think he's in partial. His daughter is hardcore, and um, but if we're talking about how I know the chiropractor who used to consult him regarding his son Jet, and that chiropractor was filling John and probably Kelly with a lot of BS
Mhm.
about what was going on um, regarding Jet. A lot of stuff that I know is just the typical Scientology uh, kind of stuff that's not relevant and not valid.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that, but I think that was destined to be a train wreck, and it was.
Yeah.
What happened to Jet? Because I don't think he got the right treatment for his condition.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I want to go into all of that about God. The whole thing around Jet's death is so complex, and but to me, what's important is it was obviously very clear that John Travolta and Kelly Preston loved their son. This was a very difficult situation for them, and Travolta himself gave an interview where he talked about Scientology moving auditors into his house for the next 2 years after Jet's death. And Travolta couched it as, look what a good thing the church did for me. But virtually everyone I've talked to about that says what was really going on was Scientology was there to make sure they didn't leave because that's the kind of traumatizing incident that can make somebody think twice about their involvement.
Well, absolutely, especially when this chiropractor, I won't mention his name, was giving them advice about autism, and it was completely counter to any scientific facts. And so I think that would cause an issue. And I agree with what you're telling me that yes, they were there to try to get him out of his grief and Kelly out of her grief, which I think ultimately didn't work at all. It rarely does, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
And not to mention, who knows how much money the organization got from installing those auditors. It wasn't small, I can tell you that.
And
They didn't.
I have to wonder if they've sent them back in after Kelly's death. You
Yeah,
know.
I wouldn't doubt it. The problem with the whole premise of Scientology therapy is it's based on uh, focusing on things that aren't true ultimately. So it's like you get a band aid that appears to feel good, but it's not getting to the root problems. And they tell you that it is, but that's based on Hubbard's narrative regarding the whole thing of the OT levels, which are based on, to some degree, this kind of space opera.
Right. And let me
And,
just, I do want to interject something. You brought it up earlier about Travolta perhaps seeking kind of a gay cure in Scientology. And I want to point out that is absolutely what L. Ron Hubbard promoted was the idea that he had this thing called the tone scale,
yeah,
and which all the different human emotions are on this tone scale. And he equated all homosexual people as being 1-1 on that scale, which means covert hostility,
right.
and the aim of Scientology processing counseling is to raise your tone level and get you out of 1-1 up, hopefully up to 4.0, which is the first major step.
Enthusiasm.
And in other words, it's a gay cure. They want gay people to go through this counseling, raise their tone level, and they'll no longer be gay. There's no question that Scientology considers their counseling a kind of gay cure, and John Travolta would not be the only person who has gone into it hoping that they could do this kind of counseling to quote unquote cure them.
Well,
So
absolutely, yes. And here's a problem. If well, almost any area of any career now is got all kinds of people, all kinds of ethnicity, and all kinds of sexual preferences. In LA anyway, and in at Celebrity Center is kind of like forbidden to work with gay people. They're dangerous because Hubbard was very clear that emotional level, covert hostility, was the most dangerous level of emotion that any person could have.
wow.
So that therefore all gays were not to be trusted. Problem The issue with me is I had many different cognitive dissonances, but one of them was in my industry, there's no way you're not going to work with gay people. And I worked with choreographers a lot. And interesting thing is the people that I work with that were gay, super talented, and I always got along with them and never had a problem. So that kind of flew into the face of I'm supposed to think that they're really dangerous.
Mm.
So
Well, you've been through quite an adventure, and again, I'm really looking forward to people seeing your film. It's called Brothers Broken. It tells the story of people, the band, and how you guys got sucked into Scientology so deeply. Your brother got out first, how that then ripped the two of you apart. You finally made your way out. Full disclosure, your proprietor, Tony Ortega, appears in the film because I happened to be there when you were making your way out. You became a wonderful member of the underground bunker community. And then you got to reunite with your brother, and it's just absolutely wonderful story. Geoff Levin, thank you so much for helping me out, and I really am looking forward to people seeing that film.
Could I say one thing about the film?
Go ahead.
The title really covers the band and my brother, because I feel that all the band members were brothers too.
Yeah.
And so it not only me coming out and deciding to repair my connections, I got to get back with all of the band members as well, which was great. So I felt like Brothers Broken was really an appropriate title.
It's a great title. It's a super film, and I can't wait to hear about how well it's doing. All right. Thank you, Geoff, so much.
Thank you.
Now I won't go down in Bunker Town again, 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 to witness history, ride the storm, wait to see how reckoning and the day they all come. Oh, but I'm hunkered down in Bunker Town again, again.